This week on the show, we're going to be talking with Peter Toth. He's got a jail management system called iocage that's been getting pretty popular recently. Have we finally found a replacement for ezjail? We're going to see how it stacks up. BSD Now, episode 102, may contain ZFS, recorded August 12th, 2015. Hey, I'm your host, Chris Moore.
And I'm Alan Jude.
We're glad to have you guys with us this week. We got an exciting episode. We're going to be talking about jails and iocage, and you want to stick around for the interview. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think was this the last one we recorded up at BSD
No,
Can?
we got a couple more in the can still.
We still got a couple more. Okay, but it's an entertaining one. I hope you guys will enjoy it. But before we get into the interview, of course, we want to get straight to the news this week. And we have a weird device here we want to talk about. Somebody's posted on getting FreeBSD up and running on a Openssh, what is it, RT5350F-Ohio Linuxo? I'm not sure. Yeah. That's a mouthful.
It looks like somebody tried to mix Odroid, Linux, and Arduino into one word.
Yeah. It doesn't roll off the tongue as nice as marketing probably would have liked. Yes. Anyway, but if you haven't heard of this device, you're probably not alone. I had never heard of it till I saw this article. So take some comfort in that. But it's basically a small board with a MIPS CPU, couple of Ethernet ports, wireless support, and 32 whopping megabytes of RAM. Do a lot with that. But this blog series talks about the adventures of installing FreeBSD on this device. But it's at the moment it takes quite a bit of setup work and elbow grease to make this go. So we've actually got two posts that the author has already done talking about getting it installed and then talking about setting up GPIO and how you would configure it. And there's already a part 3 that's in the works. So we'll of course bring that to you later when that arrives. Yes. But any thoughts you had on this one, Alan?
No.
Looks pretty interesting.
Looks cool. Interesting device.
How much on disk? It has 32 megs of RAM. What are they using? An SD card, I assume. It says an 8 megabyte SPI flash.
Yes. So that's similar. The routers we were doing at BSD Can had 8 megabytes of flash, but they had 128 megabytes of RAM.
Interesting. Interesting.
But this one has some other interesting hardware by the look of it. So.
That is interesting. I don't see it. It says it does have one USB port, so I suppose you could throw something on the USB there if you need to bring in other parts of the world or base or ports and packages.
He actually has a note here at the bottom. It says, Adrian at FreeBSD.org redirected me to the FreeBSD Wi-Fi build GitHub page and asked the instructions for this chip to be added there as well.
Nice.
So, yeah, because the FreeBSD Wi-Fi build has everything you need to build an image for MIPS, and that's what we were using on the BSD Can devices. So this looks quite similar. Yeah, well, it's definitely a neat workup here. It shows getting it set up, and then he talks about making a really obviously tiny MFS root. So it looks like he says used a NIT, Getty, SH, a couple libs, and then a small etcrc using makefs. Yep. Yeah, especially fitted in that 8 megs. Yeah, that's probably exactly what you guys did. Exactly.
Right.
There's a script in the FreeBSD Wi-Fi build, so you don't have to do quite all this work yourself. I'm sure he wishes he had found that link from Adrian a little sooner.
We could have saved you a little time, but if you'd like to do it yourself and see, what exactly the steps you're doing are, that's a good way to do it. But then his second poster, he talks about the Gpio registers on it, and he mentions that it's similar to another model, the RT305X, and then the RT5350 are the same. So that's cool. You can follow the instructions for either or. Any specific interesting bits here? The Gpio setup?
How to configure it so you can do things with it by the look of it.
Yeah. So he said he's able to read if buttons are pressed now with Gpio CTL and toggle the state of relays. So very cool. Looks like you got that working.
I guess with that would mean you could turn things on and off using the device, which obviously has quite a few interesting uses.
That is interesting. He said something I didn't know, but he said those MIPS boards are hint-based platforms. They don't use the flattened device tree like ARM. So he did end up using a small device.hints. So interesting. Very cool. So if you have one of these or want to get your hands on one, of course, check our show notes. We'll have links to this so you can see exactly how to walk through getting a FreeBSD setup on that. Did he say, I guess I didn't see it here. Was it FreeBSD 10.1 he put on there?
I imagine it would have to be head for MIPS support.
Head for MIPS? Okay. Yeah, he didn't say what checkout or whatever. But okay, well, that's something we could maybe ask him or somebody could write in if you want to know the specific cut he used. Okay, well, next up, speaking of small home routers and stuff, we're talking about the modern OpenBSD home router. And in this case, he's not using a super tiny box. He has a picture of it, and you might go, oh my gosh, what closet did he dig that up out of? But
it sounds a lot like the machine that was my router until I got the device for BSD CAN.
Right. So I'm not using a low power one. I still have a desktop very similar to what he's showing here, but it is not a 600 megahertz Pentium 3 like he's using. It's a dual core AMD box with 4 gigs of RAM. And, it's not using hardly any of that, but it's, 95 watt processor in it, or a power supply in it. So it isn't super high power. But anyway, back to the blog post here, where he talks about building an OpenBSD based gateway for his home network, of course. And one of the pull quotes he mentions here up at the top is that, of course, it's no secret that most consumer routers ship with software that's flaky at very best and probably insecure at worst. So that's very true. And I know we've been kind of preaching on that for a while now. Anything interesting about this article you want to?
No, it's just it deals with some of the things that our tutorial didn't cover, like PPP and IPv6 and stuff. So definitely some useful information in there.
Well, it was nice. He had a list of, I guess, had 4 wireless NICs available, and only one of them would work in this case because it supported host AP mode. It looked like the winner here was a Cisco Linksys WMP54G, which is using a Rawlink RT2561S chipset using the RAL driver. But he had looked at, I guess, a couple Atheroses and then a Marvel using the Malo driver, and then the Atheroses didn't have a driver on the OpenBSD's box. So going with Rawlink may be the way to go. So see if you can find something similar if you'd like to follow this and see exactly how he set it up. But yeah, the picture is awesome. I can't remember seeing, it's been probably 10 years since I've seen an IBM case that looked like that with the floppy drive in the front. That's so
yeah,
so
even
cute.
like floppy drives, I guess. Yeah, I had that. I kind of, it would be more, I don't know, throwback if it was a CRT monitor.
Right. Yeah.
I still have a bunch of CRT monitors in my basement that I need to get rid of.
You do. So I got rid of all of ours about 4 years ago. We couldn't find anyone to give them to.
That's how we ended up with them. When we were in 2008, when my business partner and I, before we started Scale Engine, we were looking for office space, and we got sidetracked into starting an internet cafe. It's a long story. But when we were building the machines, we're like, well, so we went around, and people were very happy to give us their 19-inch CRT monitors. And so we got like 6 of the damn things, and we split them up. Yeah, and we split them up, and now now it's even later, and it's like nope, nobody wants that. Not even a little bit.
Give them away, and they're heavy, and they're
especially giant 19-inch ones too.
Oh gosh. So what we ended up doing with them, we have a friend's house we went to, took them over there and shot them with pistols.
There you go.
And they explode quite nicely. There's nothing more satisfying than saying, I've been lugging this around the country for 10 years. I'm ready to see this bite the dust.
Yeah. I remember lugging my 19-inch to LAN parties. Crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was back in the day. Speaking of, that reminds me, at some point maybe I'll have to talk to you guys about the game day parties we do here. We got about 12 systems and dual booted with PCBSD for Minecraft and SteamOS for other like Team Fortress stuff, and that can be a lot of fun. But yeah, no CRTs here. Thank goodness. Anyway, back to the article. Sorry, I just got distracted by the picture. That brought back a lot of memories, including the clacky keyboard. And, I mean, it just all fits together. That's great. Anyway, he talks about performing the configuration, how he got set up here. Where was he located?
I said Internode, so that's Australia, right?
In Australia, yeah. He was setting up ADSL.
Yeah, and he actually has apparently V4 and V6, but they have to be on separate PPP sessions. So he actually make 2 different connections. And so that's, a special setup. And so that's why this tutorial's quite a bit different than the one we have.
Yeah, this very helpful.
I think he even talks a little bit about getting his modem to lie to the DSLAM on the other end to get a higher line rate by claiming the signal to noise ratio is actually better than it is to get higher bandwidth.
Oh, that's one way to do it. He also talks about setting up IPv6
Mm-hmm.
on it as well. So that's
It's
good.
nice when you have an ISP that will do that.
That is right. No, I'm still having to tunnel, I think, over to Hurricane Electric's tunnel broker. It's the only way I could test it here.
Yeah,
Thank you, Charlie.
I won't talk about the fact that I have native Hurricane Electric here, so that includes V6.
You kill me, man.
I know. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Price we pay for living out in the county where cable's the only thing. I mean, I suppose we're fortunate to have cable, because if you go farther down the road, there's no cable, and then you're stuck with DSL. And if you go farther out yet, you got a cellular modem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not as bad as it could be.
Yeah, I remember my friends had to add 20 feet to this old TV antenna tower to reach over the trees to get it like a microwave internet connection.
Yep.
Yeah, that's hey, finally I have a megabit instead of dial-up.
Oh, that's the price you got to pay if you live out far, I suppose. But it happens. Okay. But also related to this, we have another blog post talking about setting up something similar, another OpenBSD router. But his post also includes some details on reusing your consumer router as a wireless bridge. So if that's something you have laying around, that could be cool.
Very much like in the picture, actually. When I used a Pentium 3 as my router, I didn't go out and find a Wi-Fi card that was compatible. I took my old Netgear wireless router that I had before and just logged into it, disabled the DHCP and the NAT and all the features, and then just used it to basically bridge my Wi-Fi devices associated to it, and then they would actually get DHCP from the Pentium 3. Yeah.
Oddly enough, that's exactly how mine is set up here. I still have this fancy gaming D-Link Wi-Fi, 3 antennas and router or whatever, and it supports, multiple Wi-Fi networks. So we have like a guest network for people who come over and stuff. So I just left all that up and running, turned off DHCP, and got it all hooked up into my FreeBSD router.
Yeah, I did the same thing with one of those little routers from Japan, because it can do up to 6 access points. So I have like one for the office, one for the house, and one for guests, and that one actually supports VLANs, so they're actually completely segregated on different subnets. And if you're on my guest VLAN, you can have all the internet you want. You just can't reach any of my file servers or anything.
Sure. So that's all mine does, is it just restricts that you can't reach anything except the internet. You have no access to other local boxes. But we still have a password on that, of course, because I don't believe in
mine also has a password, but it's the address of my house, so that
Oh, you just gave it away now, Alan. Yes. Somebody's gonna go war driving right up to Alan's place and be like, "Yeah, I'm getting on the Hurricane Electric."
Yep.
There you go. Well, this other blog post talking about reusing your computer or consumer router as a wireless bridge. He also has a separate post talking about setting up IPsec VPN on the router. So if that's something you're curious about as well, you may want to go hit up the link and read about that.
Yes, Dan Langill was posting from DEF CON how apparently his VPN at home was broken and he was having trouble getting to it from DEF CON. And it's like, maybe that's actually a better thing, Dan. Maybe you don't want anybody to be able to piggyback onto you and get to your house.
That's right. Okay, I love next up in
the key, in the example config, his IPsec key is like big fat key with lots of random stuff with all inner caps and leet speed.
Right. Well, hey, if you're going to do an example, that's one to do there. But yeah, he's got all the gory details on there and how to configure that and such. So pretty cool. It looks like this one's in the UK. I think he's on BT. Or so he's got all the configuration set up for that as well. So if you're in the UK and want to see an example specifically how he did it on BT there you go. Okay, so what do we got next here? We got some other crazy pictures, I think, to show here.
OpenBSD and NetBSD machines at the Open Source Conference in Kyoto, Japan.
Nice.
So
they even have a FreeBSD machine, so free open and net, and one NetBSD device even with Adobe Flash running on it.
Ooh.
How interesting is that? So correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess they have a Linux emulation.
Yeah, I think they might have had the first one, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But the FreeBSD one had just been used more, I guess, or got more love, but maybe they're catching theirs up.
Yeah, forgive me, NetBSD folks, for not knowing that, but I did not know that. I'd be curious to see how far or where their Linux simulation layer is at, how it compares.
Yep. So we got lots of pictures here. And they got, helpfully, they've labeled all the machines, so you know what they are.
Yes.
But they labeled them mostly in Japanese. Although, model numbers and stuff often are printed in Latin characters so you can read them. But it's like, well, that's a Luna 88K. I'm familiar with the fact that that's a thing, but I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, right.
And then they have...
So you got to show the towel off. I'm a little confused by this, to tell you the truth. The picture looks like there's a light that goes off in the middle that's NetBSD powered.
Oh, yes.
What is that?
I don't know if it's a towel or like a shirt.
It's an LED towel.
Oh, I guess it's just a towel for the bathroom or whatever, and it lights up. So it's like a towel with a built-in nightlight or something. I have no idea.
I don't know. It's confusing because the way the hands are, I thought maybe he was pressing a button that's embedded in the towel
Possibly,
or something. And it makes
just showing that the towel's not very thick or something.
Maybe, but either way.
Because I'm kind of guessing really it's like, have you seen that shirt on ThinkGeek that does like Wi-Fi detecting?
Yeah, or the one where if you give it to your significant other and when you get closer, the heart meter fills up.
And there's also one that's you can play the drums by touching the shirt. And all those, they just have like that little bit wired back to like a little pack that
peels off so you can wash it.
Yeah, it's like stuck on with Velcro and it's thin and it runs a little operating system and does stuff. But making that NetBSD so you can actually do interesting things with it is quite cool.
I think I saw one that also showed Wi-Fi available in the area too, where it had a Wi-Fi meter on the shirt. I need one of those. That's really geeky and cool, and people would probably stare at me very funny where I live in the South here because I don't run into too many geeks. But
they got
what the heck is that?
Panasonic Let's Note running NetBSD 7, and there's some Raspberry Pis running NetBSD and FreeBSD.
Of course, we got some sharp NetWalkers there with he's got Firefox on there, XFCE, the whole 9 yards.
It's some nice NetBSD ASCII art on the screen of, I'm guessing it's the Luna because the kernel name is Lunatic. Lots of interesting things. Again,
I know we've begged this before, but you guys got to send some of these over to the States here or make your rounds to some of the other conferences outside of Japan because this is just really cool.
Yeah, or if you have a Raspberry Pi and some other little devices and you've put some BSD on them, make sure you go out to the event nearest you and show it off and send us some pictures.
That's right.
We can't ask the people from Japan to fly all over the world to spread this stuff. We need everybody to do their part.
Yeah, it's pretty reasonable that we can get a hold of these.
Well, very specifically,
they already have
there are Linux conferences pretty much everywhere. We just got to take them over.
That's right.
Show them the right way.
Okay. Once you show all the pictures there, Alan, you ready to move on to the next one? Okay. So next article we have here, OpenSSH 7.0 has been released. So they've finished up the 7.0 release. Of course, they've been deprecating a lot of legacy stuff in this particular release. On the chopping block, we have SSH v1 support disabled, 1024-bit Diffie-Hellman Group 1 SHA-1 with KEX disabled, and v00 cert format authentication disabled.
Yep.
So
anything kind of old and outdated is off by default now because, we don't want SSH to be the next SSL. So let's make sure we disable all this old stuff before it gets used against us.
That's right. So in addition to those things, making the chopping block here, it looks like some syntax has changed for root logins as well. And so now it's called prohibit password instead of without password. So this is for permitting root login. So this makes it so root can log in, but only with keys. All interactive authentication methods are now disabled by default now. But the good news, if you're using an older configuration, the without password option still works. So you don't necessarily have to go update your configs right now.
Or more importantly, if you upgrade your daemon and don't upgrade your config, it's not going to stop working and lock you out of the machine.
Or expose you in some horrible way that you didn't intend. So that is good. In addition, you can now control which public keys or key types are available for authentication, as well as control which public key types are offered for host authentications as well. So it looks like those are all user settable. And of course, a slew of various bug fixes, doc improvements included. And aside from the keyboard interactive and PAM related bugs, this release includes one major security fix that specifically TTY permissions were too open, so users could write messages to other logged in users. So that has been ripped out a little bit. So another minor fix. Oh, excuse me, I said major, but yeah, that's a minor fix.
I also see SSH and SSHD added more compatibility for Cisco and PuTTY versions as well.
Okay. And then it looks like they're already hot at work on the next release, and even more chopping block. Looks like they're talking about RSA keys being refused if they're under 1024 bits. CBC-based ciphers will be disabled, and the MD5 HMAC will also be disabled. So again, keep up the good work. You got to do that pruning to keep things, like you said, safe, and so we don't get caught 10 years from now going, why did we get hacked because of that old thing still being open that nobody's used in 15 years? That's crazy.
Yep.
So anyway, keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll see this trickled out into all the relevant BSDs and Linux and everywhere else, and all the other vendors who pull in OpenSSH here soon, and we can start using some of these newer features. Okay, so before we get into our interview, we do got to talk about our first sponsor this week, which is going to be IX Systems, and of course, you guys know the URL by now. You could probably tell it to me, but if you're new and you don't know it, it's ixsystems.com/BSD Now, where you can go there right now. It's up 24/7. Get in touch with somebody. Let them build the system of your dreams. So, Alan, you got the page up here.
Yep.
You want to tell us a little about your... you still have that server?
Yes, I have the server coming, and I have pictures of it coming. IX managed to take a bunch of pictures of it while it was being put together, and we'll be showing those off very soon.
Okay. So keep tuned for that. A future episode will have your weekly server porn, where you can see some of the hot awesomeness that Alan has ordered from IX Systems.
Yes. And you can see the level of detail they put into making the machines, including built to exactly the right length SATA cables for the SSDs that are mounted inside, so that you don't have a bunch of excess cable blocking up airflow, and you can just see the amount of work and detail they put into making sure it's put together just right.
That's fantastic. So, again, you guys, if you haven't gotten in touch with them yet, go ahead and do so. You'll be pleasantly surprised when you talk to a sales guy. He's practically an engineer, right? They're going to know an awful lot about this stuff. So just get started with, what are you trying to do? Tell them the problem you're trying to solve, what you need your server to do and perform at, and what specifically you're trying to achieve with it, and then let them help you design the best solution to your problem, which they will be more than happy to do, of course.
Exactly. There's a reason why we trust them to do it for us.
That's right. And everything white glove the whole way, and just it's fantastic. I mean, I wish we could tell you more about it, but you really just need to go talk to these guys yourself, and send us in your success stories. Exactly. If you've ordered something from IX and are enjoying that, or even let us know.
Yesterday, actually, one of the drives in a server I bought last year failed. And so I put in my ticket with IX, and a couple hours later, it's like, here's the tracking number for the replacement drive. It'll be there soon.
See, there you go.
It's like,
that's just awesome service. Yeah. So again, guys, ixsystems.com, and when you talk to them, let them know you heard about it here on BSD Now. So we're joined today by Peter Toth, who's all the way from New Zealand, right?
Yes.
Man, how long was that flight, by the way?
13 and a half hours to Vancouver, and another 4.5 from Vancouver to Ottawa.
Wow, all that to come up to BSD Can. I think he might get the award for maybe the farthest travel.
Yes.
But first of all, thank you so much for being here and coming on the show with us this week. We appreciate it.
I thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so we're here at BSD Can in our special interview room.
Yes, it's the executive cubicle. It's very nice. But Peter's the original author of iocage, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. But before we do, what we ask everyone is, how'd you get involved in BSD? What's the BSD community like in New Zealand?
Yes, so it goes back a long way. I started in Europe, so I'm originally from Europe, from Slovakia.
Okay.
And we moved over to New Zealand quite a few years ago. But I started with BSD. I was originally a hardcore Linux guy. Yes, it's strange.
No,
so,
actually,
it happens.
A third of all the developers we ever talked to actually started with Linux.
Yeah. Yes, so in the early beginning, I was a hardcore Linux guy, and will advocate Linux to everybody and try to run Linux everywhere. And this was in the early days, right, early 2000s.
Sure.
And Linux was still an effort to try to install it and configure it the proper way, and doing updates. But then one day, one of my roommates said that, have you heard about FreeBSD? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, a lot of people say it's better than Linux. And I'm like, that can't be possible.
Blasphemy, right?
Yes. So he left the room, and I was like, no, he's just talking, And then it was in the back of my mind for quite a few days, and I'm like, I should really look at this FreeBSD. And I'm kind of interested, so I started to read the documentation online, and it was a very pleasant surprise. So I discovered the documentation is really high quality, and I was just blown away. You know, like a lot of the things what seemed really hard in Linux or hackish was actually nicely implemented in FreeBSD, like mostly in the user line, you know, the management of things and how you configure stuff in FreeBSD. Everything just was so logical and nicely laid out, and even, you know, third-party packages installing into ESL local, and this nice separation on the file system level. So I instantly liked it, and I think I reinstalled everything to FreeBSD after that. And, and you still deal with Linux, but it's mostly work-related. But wherever I can, I just, you know, encourage people to use FreeBSD and give it a try.
Okay, well that's cool.
The first question is, so tell us what iocage is and how it started.
Yes, so iocage is a shell script which kind of brings together multiple technologies. So it kind of amalgamates ZFS, virtual networking, resource containers, and a few more things. And it started off as a Perl script in the beginning, which was a really bad choice. So I started to using it in my own setups mostly, and that was at the time when ZFS was pretty new in FreeBSD.
Sure.
It's around 2009-10 roughly, and it was really good. But I decided to open source it at the time, and I put it on SourceForge, and it was Perl, and people were complaining, "Oh, why is this Perl? Can't you just rewrite it in Python?" And you know, we just we liked the idea, but could you redo it or something? But I didn't have much time, back then. But early last year, I decided to rewrite it in Shell, and just because Shell is in base and you can just drop in Shell script, and I was quite amazed like how much stuff you can get away with in Shell.
I've seen some things.
There's some wild shell scripts out there.
Yes, there are, and you can do so many things, and I was just quite amazed. Oh, you can do this, and yes, it's quite easy actually. It makes sense. So I rewrote the whole original Perl script in Shell and named it iocage, just because, you know, we got so many jail managers, and every jail manager is called something jail. So
or jail something.
Or jail something. Yes. So and even my previous one, the Perl script was called something jail. So I just wanted to move away from that, provide some differentiation.
Sure.
That, you know, this is a new tool, or not to be confused with some other tools. And then so I had positive feedbacks from people, and I had instead of SourceForge, I use GitHub, and there's a lot more visibility through GitHub, and you get a lot more PRs, and just people genuinely, you know, more interested in GitHub. And we got Brandon Schneider started to commit to iocage really heavily, so he was involved, and he's like, he was almost like my boss on stage. So, you know, can you do this and do it this way rather this way than that way? So he's a really good guy who really makes a difference in, you know, trying to push things the right way. And since then we had quite a lot more pull requests and committers, and people would just drive by and, you know, just comment stuff.
Just flinging code at you.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes. So it's interesting.
So iocage uses ZFS pretty much exclusively, right?
Yes.
Okay, so explain to us some of the things it does with ZFS that wouldn't be possible on another file system.
Yeah, so ZFS nicely integrates with the jail idea. So you got a constraint on the file system level, and it's really natural within ZFS. So you just create a new ZFS data set. But the idea is not new, but a lot of the other jail managers either lack this functionality or the functionality was there, but it was a bit, you know, not as cleanly implemented. So,
hey, I'll take the blame for some of that. Warden started on UFS and then evolved as ZFS, and it got ugly.
A lot of the tools started before ZFS, and so they didn't really have this concept of, you can create this data set and then delegate it to the jail in such a way that the jail can do whatever it wants with it, and it can't hurt you.
Yes. So I'm not criticizing any of the other jail managers, because there was a time when there was no ZFS, there was no virtual networking, there was no resource controls. Basically,
Yeah.
you couldn't enforce it in a way like you can do it now, and basically, I just wanted something what kind of brings all those technologies together under one umbrella, and you can just use it in a nice and easy way. So I looked at how the ZFS command syntax is constructed, and how neat that is. So I tried to replicate as much as I can from that.
If every command line interface could be as nice as the ZFS one,
true.
where you like ZFS list, blah, and I want this list of fields in this order, and I want them sorted by this, and strip out the header and give me tab separated fields.
The world would be a better place.
We wouldn't need half of the stuff we have in Unix if everybody had just done that.
Yes,
right?
I think everybody should look at ZFS and how the syntax was implemented from a management perspective. It's just beyond a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, something that ZFS did differently than almost every other tool written in Unix. It was written specifically for system administrators and to make their life as easy as possible. Where a lot of tools, it seems like, yes, that was designed by the person who wrote the operating system, how they thought a sysadmin would want to use it or whatever. But ZFS, it seems like they really understood what the sysadmin's problems are with storage and how to fix them.
Yes, exactly. And it was just so easy to follow that model, and it nicely fits because in iocage we use the same kind of similar syntax to ZFS. It nicely integrated with the ZFS file system as well, and it just makes sense. If you worked with ZFS before, it's easier to work with iocage.
You'll feel at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there was an idea back that I could just store all the jail properties as ZFS user attributes. So I'm storing all the jail configuration inside ZFS file system user properties, and that allows a nice atomic way to set and get the options properties out for a jail. And when you send and receive jails across the network, it's just replicated instantly.
Yeah, the settings go with it, and so there's like no config file at all, or
no config file at all, and you can just run iocage and it will recognize the jails.
Yeah, it's pretty slick.
Yeah, so that's
especially when you're, one of the things I liked about ezjail was I could use the archive command, pick up stop a jail, archive it, pick it up, move it to another machine, and start it. But it didn't bring all the config with it when I did. And with this, you were getting ZFS replication would just bring the jail properties right along with it.
Yes, and it opens up other doors as well. Like you can do ZFS jailing. You can jail ZFS data set, and you can just snapshot manage from inside the jail and send and receive inside the jail, create new file systems inside the jail, and you can give that management capability to other people and without actually affecting the whole system.
Right, and you still have the control from outside to limit how many snapshots they can create or how many sub-file systems they can create, so they can't soak up all your resources or whatever. And you have, the reservations and quotas to stop them from using more space. And it's just, it's like this all naturally fits together. It's like somebody thought it out.
I know, right? It's a good fit with the ZFS and jails put together.
And the other aspect is virtual networking, which is in FreeBSD for quite a long time now, the VNet implementation of image. So I was a big fan of that back in the days when it appeared, and it reminded me of the Solaris crossbow at the time. And it's very similar. I think the initial implementation was probably earlier out than actually crossbow appeared. I might be wrong here, but it just seemed really cool. You can run independent networking stacks with jails, and it gives you a lot more security as well, isolation, and for management as well. Everything just feels natural because you have the interfaces inside the jail, and they just behave exactly the same as physical interfaces. And I think in 10.1 now it's quite stable. VNet. There used to be system panics before, but especially with combination of something like PF.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is much better now. So
it's getting better.
Yes. So hopefully, if people use more iocage and get more use of VNet, then actually, people will file bug reports about VNet.
Start fixing stuff.
Yes.
Most of it's fixed, and anything that wasn't, we'll hopefully find.
Yes, there's not much outstanding. So I think we are like 5% away from. 95% of the work is there, and FreeBSD and all these technologies are really cool and could be production ready, but this 5% is missing for VNet. Where it would be really nice, I think, for other people instead of running full VMs.
Yeah. Definitely a lot lighter weight. Sure. So, where do you see iocage going? What's planned in the roadmap, so to speak?
Yeah, so the next one on the to-do list would be doing something like send and receive over the network, so integrate that. I had this idea before, even earlier with the Perl script, and it was partially implemented, but I would love to have the capability to just transparently send and receive across nodes, the jails. Currently you can do it, but it's a manual process.
Sure.
Also, imaging would be nice. So I think you, Chris, had some great ideas about imaging.
We're talking about some ideas here. We're kicking some stuff back and forth.
Yes.
So
I think there's a lot of potential in how to do jail deployments efficiently in the environment, and how to image jails, and how to deploy them, and how to manage them.
Push and commit changes again and all that.
Yes, and especially like these days, containerization is getting so much hype, and from the Linux world especially, like you have Docker, and other ones, and in the FreeBSD world, we don't have anything equivalent right now, but we are not far away from it.
Yeah.
We've got very secure containerization system and jails, and we have the base file system .ZFS. We have a lot of other things like dtrace, and it could be a really good selling point for FreeBSD. If we could.
It's kind of like all the tools are there. We just need to stitch them together to kind of present it as a final package.
It seems almost like if you had the scripts to build a jail that had this app preset up and ready to go, and then you just make a snapshot of that, send it as a ZFS image, compress it, and put it on a website somewhere, and people just like, oh, I need that app, and then they would just literally curl pipe ZFS receive instead of pipe bash, and it would splat out an iocage jail with all of its configuration already there.
That's some of the magic we're talking about doing. So definitely.
And other things will probably pop up naturally from that transition to imaging, like probably an API would be a good idea at some point, where we could do a REST API and talk to iocage jails. Just deploy and manage jails through an API.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, and there's other work going on in the base system to make it easier in the case of, I have FreeBSD 11, but this jail's for 10.1. It'll mostly work except for like netstat will crash because when the binary interfaces change slightly. It's like, well, if we change those to use binary NV lists to pass information back and forth, adding a field won't break backwards compatibility.
That's cool.
And then you'll easily be able to run a head server with stable jails on it, and then that eliminates like the one other problem of a Docker type thing is that you have to have the stability of so that you don't have to make multiple versions of every application in a jail for every possible host operating system version.
Yes, and we've got some interesting support, like we support multiple different jail types. So we got something like base jails, which originally originates from ezjail, but we use ZFS instead of nullfs mount. So we clone the file systems and provide it that way. And that brings in interesting possibilities, like you can have persistence for your applications and still reprovision the jail and move to a new version. And move back if you wanted to, and also there's like an empty jail option where you can just set up the whole ZFS structure for a jail, and you could potentially dump in Linux
or a snapshot of your own or whatever it is you wanted to put in.
Yes, and the other nice option is you can clone jails within seconds, so you can clone them on the fly and just rapidly deploy jails. The next one, what probably would want to integrate is Beehive. Would be really nice to pull in, and I know that one of the guys started to work on this. It's called iOhive. It's already on GitHub, and I know that Michael Dexter's got a really good script for Beehive management, so we'll definitely look at those and try to merge.
Yeah, and I have a patch to make Beehive use a config file, although now I'm kind of thinking, what if Beehive could store its configuration and properties of the ZVol? That is the...
Yes, I think it would be an interesting one, and also the capability to export configuration out to UCL. That would be really great. And we had a discussion yesterday about this.
I wrote the script that can take a UCL file and code it into ZFS properties, or the other way around.
Yes, I think that's got a great future with exporting and importing configuration, and ZFS, even for other, it could be used for other deployments as well, not just jails, but people might want to store customer information inside the ZFS properties, like billing information.
The new auto snapshotting tool I'm using, you configure which snapshots, like how often create a snapshot every 15 minutes or whatever, by setting properties, and those are inherited by the children. But I can go into one of the children and say, actually, you don't want snapshots,
right?
Or I'll take a snapshot every 15 minutes of every data set, and one every hour, and I'll keep so many of this one and that one. And it's like, well, my source tree, I want a whole bunch of snapshots of the last little while, so I keep lots of 15-minute ones for recently, but I don't need 2-week-old copy of the source tree. That's what SVN's for. Right. Whereas my ports tree or something, maybe I want old stuff, but I don't want to keep new snapshots.
Yeah, it's definitely
and it gives
flexible.
you all the flexibility, and the configuration is all stored right there and automatically inherited by the children and replicated when you move it to another machine, and it's just magic.
Yes, and I think people are not aware of what ZFS can really do for them in their environments. And if we just probably need to raise more awareness around what ZFS can do and in what ways we can use it. Because, like, for example, yesterday we discovered that we could just do a ZFS diff between 2 snapshots and create jail images.
Major. Mind-blowing. It's awesome. We featured it in the new book. But that's the other stuff is like a talk I'm working on is like interesting things you didn't know that you could do with ZFS.
Right.
And there's all kinds of stuff there.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool. And I really enjoyed Medaheron's talks here, and it's just so nice that you can ask questions about what you want to know, and actually the guy who is the ZFS god can answer the questions for you. And that's pretty unique in the FreeBSD environment, that you can actually ask these people who are really core developers of the technologies, and you can actually interact with them. I think it's great.
Yeah, and
it's a great selling point.
It was great to see the list of new things that are coming to ZFS. I very much expected it to be very similar to the one we saw in Tokyo, because it was only 3 months ago.
Yeah,
there's like 5 new features on the slides.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's evolving still.
They're getting SHA-512 hashes and 2 other completely different hashing algorithms and all kinds of interesting new stuff. Yes. Solutions for fragmentation problems.
Also, memory management will be better too. Yeah. And it's just really nicely fits into FreeBSD and jails. All the ZFS subsystem, which is great. That's what we found.
Cool.
So is there any other technologies that you've heard about coming to BSD, or that you would like to come to BSD to put into iocage?
I think, in general, would love to polish the resource containerization.
Yeah,
that would be really nice.
The resource control stuff is quite new. Like, it's been around for a little while, but it hasn't been used that much, and you're really giving it the workout now, and I think
we'll biggest one stuff come out of that.
The biggest one people have been talking about was the CPU limiting, and it's kind of bursty because of the way it does it, right?
Yes. So that's an interesting one too. And also there are some memory options where you would want to have, for example, you're running OpenJDK inside the jail, and you would want to have the capability for the OpenJDK to actually decide how much memory it can use, and what the jail is reporting is how much is available. That would be nice.
Because OpenJDK scales itself based on how much memory you have, but the jail is reporting all of the memory of the host, not what its allocation is.
Yes,
because I saw there was a look at a generic framework to override sysctls inside a jail, so that you can spoof the amount of physical RAM available and other stuff. It was for RAM, number of CPUs.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
A couple of things, because a lot of things auto scale based on those values.
They look at those.
Yes, and I think even technologies like dtrace is really interesting to explore with jails, because you can potentially detrace jails from outside, for example, and it gives you a nice view into jails, like what the jails are doing or what the processes are doing inside. And maybe just touching on the virtual network, and I think there was a discussion about VXLANs coming to FreeBSD, so that might be a really interesting one to explore with jails.
Yeah, because that basically allows you to have a VLAN that spans via UDP to a completely different segment of the network that could be in a different location.
Exactly.
And so it allows you to have a private network between 2 jails that are actually running in different data centers.
Sure.
Yes, so that opens up a whole new bag of options with VXLAN.
Oh, that's slick. Well, cool. Is there anything else you want to tell us about, or?
I think that's all, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to talk to you guys.
We'll be very grateful you took the time.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming all the way out here. Well, I guess I'm just out of curiosity. Is there a BSD community in New Zealand, or are you aware of any other folks out there?
Yes, there are folks, but I'm not aware of any local group where I could just go to. But I think we should start one.
Right? Just start one and then host a conference there one of these years so we can get down there.
Just for all of us to come to New Zealand.
That'd be awesome.
So you can you can do your 12-hour flight instead of
yeah, that's right. Make us come to you. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show with us today, Peter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that interview. So we're going to get into our roundup. But before we do, of course, one other sponsor to mention this week, which is going to be DigitalOcean, where they're still running that free BSD Now coupon code. So remember that, free BSD Now, all one word, no spaces, all lowercase. Just go plop that in your account there, and bam, instant $10 credit that you can use for running a DigitalOcean droplet. And for one of their lower end VMs, that's like 2 months worth free.
Exactly.
I mean, come on. How cool is that? That's an awesome way to try it, so to speak, before you have to buy it and see if the VM will work for you there. And, of course, having FreeBSD on it natively is fantastic. And thank you, DigitalOcean, for doing that. I know a lot of folks appreciate it. And, of course, if you'd like to go through a couple extra steps, you can, of course, put OpenBSD on there as well and refer back to the previous episode where we talked about that. I don't even remember what number that was now, but I'm sure Google knows if you ask it kindly. It will help you find that.
Yeah, all the VMs are backed by SSDs, so you get good disk performance. You get full 1 gigabit per second network interfaces, and even the $5 a month server comes with a terabyte of transfer a month. You got all that. Plus, they have a great API if you're, wanting to script your droplets, or a very easy to use control panel if you're new to virtualization and just want to create your servers and manage them easily. You can also manage your reverse DNS and anything else you need to do about your virtual machines from their very easy-to-use control panel.
Yeah, it's super simple. I think spinning up a VM here, I did it on my PCBSD box in Firefox, and it just did it 55 seconds or something like that. It was less than a minute, and just came right up. Was able to SSH into the box. It was almost too simple, but that's the way you like it. So DigitalOcean makes that so easy, guys. Go to DigitalOcean.com and get signed up now. And if you talk to anyone over there, tell them you heard about it here on BSD Now. Okay, so first up in the news roundup, what do we have here? Some C2K15 reports have also come in, and this would be the hackathon that took place in Calgary. Yeah. So you want to go through the first one here for us?
Sure. The first one here is from Alexander Bloom, and he's talking about, he says, during the hackathon, I was sitting at a table with Benno and Rick Fleuter, and we were discussing the test framework that I had created for kernel socket splicing, pfdivert, OSPFD, RelayD, and syslogd, and getting it integrated into the user source regression tests. There it spawns processes and coordinates communication between them, and everything's written in Perl. Basically, it starts up a daemon like RelayD for each subset of the tests, and with the adjusted configuration, and then it forks a client and a server process and lets them communicate with the daemon. For each subtest, they get a special function that tells them what to send and what to expect. These functions can be high level, like sending an HTTP request, and expecting a chunked answer, or low level, like send this byte, wait a bit, and send a second byte, and then close the connection, and make sure that it responds properly and doesn't crash it or whatever. And all the processes write log files where the tests grep for certain events. In addition, the test can look for system calls in the ktrace output to make sure the daemon's actually performing the work that it's supposed to.
Sure. Okay.
Even helped Benno write a test to verify that RelayD does not use too much memory. So you can make sure that, opening a bunch of connections and sending 1 or 2 bytes and then closing it or hanging there or doing things like that isn't going to cause it to eat up a bunch of your memory.
Sure.
And then Rake used that framework to start writing the test for HTTPD, because that's based on RelayD.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You want everything to be as stingy with resources as possible when you can.
And, with the right set of regression tests, you can tell when, that commit you did over there that seemed innocuous actually caused memory usage to go way up for some reason. We might want to make sure we didn't introduce a memory leak or something.
Okay. Well, next up, it looks like Renato Westfall writes in. He says this was his first OpenBSD hackathon, and it was a very pleasant and productive experience for me. I went to Calgary with two specific goals in mind. The first was to work with ezjail to finish our VPLS implementation that we started long ago. He said he ended up implementing some pseudo-wire signaling on LDPD, and Raphael implemented the new MPW virtual interface that encapsulates Ethernet frames into MPLS tunnels. The hackathon was the perfect opportunity for us to put everything together and make it just work. We spent a lot of time doing interoperability testing and fixing the bugs that cropped up in more complex usage scenarios. After several tests, we realized that our implementation was complete, and then we had some time to look into other things. But it looks like he says here his second goal is to make progress with his EIGRP implementation that he started a couple months ago. For those who don't know, it's an advanced distance vector routing protocol designed and developed by Cisco in the 90s, and it's known for fast convergence time and being simple to deploy. He said, in my opinion, EIRGP is a great routing protocol, but the fact that it was Cisco's proprietary made a lot of network engineers want to switch to OSPF, even when an EIRGP made more sense.
Yeah, if you're
the good news.
Setting up between routers inside your own network, because it's an interior gateway routing protocol. It was better, but without a good implementation that I can use on all my not Cisco devices, it's not very much use.
That's right. So he said he decided to work on this because I think it's a very interesting routing protocol, and it can help many OpenBSD users to deploy an OpenBSD box if you're in a predominantly Cisco network. He said besides the great progress made during the hackathon, the driver is still missing some important bits like IPv6 and route redistribution support. The basic functionalities, he says, are in place, but I decided to wait and release it only when I finish all the major features. So he said it won't make it into OpenBSD 5.8, but it'll certainly be available for 5.9. Nice. So something to look forward to.
And then we have a last report here from Philip Gunther. He says, he went to Calgary expecting to do some low-level x86 improvements and fix some issues with the C-state work that he had committed back in June with the power savings on laptops and so on. And that's actually what he did, which was weird. He said first came some diffs to move the grabbing the kernel block for soft interrupts from an assembly stub to a C routine so that mere mortals could actually push it around further and reduce the amount of locking that was required. Then I did some further work to a diff to add support for getting the gs.base offset for user space threads. The issue there is making sure that it won't significantly alter the performance of threads not using the feature. As there are only a few programs out there that actually make use of it, adding that feature, you didn't want it to make programs that don't use it end up being slower because they're doing extra work.
Sure.
He says on C-states, a couple developers have reported that his C-state code didn't like their machine's C1 state, resulting in higher latency during normal operations. While their box's AML was indeed bogus, it was always safe on x86 to use the halt instruction when you're in C1. So I fixed the code to add a fallback C1 state doing that, and their boxes are happier ever since. So he also says, since the hackathon, Theo, Mike Larkin, and I fixed a couple other issues, including some suspend resume bit handling that was possibly problematic. And code to suppress old-style C2, C3 states on boxes where the LAPIC will not stop, which was fixing those on some of the older AMD machines. And he says, then Theo and Katanis kicked me some and said, when were you planning on committing your K-bind work from his talk at EuroBSDCon 2014? And he said a quick refresh and some test runs, and the kernel side went in. Then I went to work on refreshing the LD.SO and CSU bits, including more GCC constraint fixes for the assembly and extending it to work with other architectures as well. And then he got heckled by Moid at giving him feedback on some of the other architectures that he didn't have access to, and things started to move him faster. And the userland parts aren't in yet, but expects them to go in shortly once they're done being unlocked for the next release.
Okay, well, that's cool. Looks like they also reviewed a little bit of random Libre Ssl diffs. So I'm glad you guys are still looking at that at the hackathons. That's cool.
Yep.
Okay, well, next up in the roundup here, this is a pretty neat one, but FreeBSD jails. I know you guys have heard us talk about this a lot, and a lot of utilities out there from ezjail to iocage to Warden, and you name it. Maybe you've written your own. But sometimes you just want to do it the hard way. So we have a link here, a nice article, where you can basically do it all by hand. So this article takes the opposite approach. Instead of trying to teach you how to use some other tool, which is in the registry, it's going to show you how to set up jails using only what's in the base system. So in this example, he's using ZFS, nullfs, and jail.conf. And unlike iocage or other utilities, it doesn't require ZFS for you to follow this, although ZFS does make it a heck of a lot easier. So if you'd like to use UFS, you can. But it's pretty cool because it'll show you how you can make snapshots for making template jails, and all done by hand. So if you're somebody who wants to learn about what's actually going on under the hood and don't want to use some utility or need to do something exotic, this may be a great way to get your feet wet with how you can set up and deploy jails.
Yeah, if you're building a machine where you don't have room to install a lot of external packages and dependencies or whatever, then it can be quite useful.
Yeah, that's definitely neat. Okay, so we'll have the link to that, of course, in the show notes if you'd like to take a look at that. Next up, OpenSSH, but with hardware tokens. So I know we've mentioned on previous episodes, we've talked about two-factor auth with SSH. But what if you wanted on both the client and the server? So this blog post is going to show how you can use a hardware token as a second authentication factor for the, something the more you have, something you have security model, of course. So it takes you through the whole process, though, start to finish. So we go through formatting the token, generating keys, getting it integrated with SSHD. And I think he's using FreeBSD on this particular
it does say that
article
in the
here.
Title.
Yep. Excuse me. But of course, you could apply this probably easily to other BSDs as well. Anything that can run SSH. And the particular token he's using, what's it called again?
Aladdin E-token.
E-token 64K. Yeah. So that's still available for pretty cheap, I believe. So you may be able to get a hold of that if you'd like to try and set up something similar to what he did here and secure both your host and your client.
That's definitely cool. That's something I might actually look into.
Yeah, it made me tempted reading this. I was like, this sounds kind of neat. So
although
it does say you might need to initialize it on a Windows box to start the actual hardware token. But once it's done, I imagine you don't need to use Windows again for anything.
Right.
You could just
I might
do it in a box.
write up a tutorial sometime for using OP as well, the one-time passwords and everything. It's kind of a different approach, but it's quite useful.
Do you have a little hardware thing you can use with that as well that spits out the one-time key?
Well, the way OP works is you can generate the keys like ahead of time and just store them on your phone or something. Although, that has some obvious issues. So I was wondering, we asked a little bit about it on the show previously, if somebody had maybe written an Android app that would do it on the fly, where you would enter the master password and the ID number, and it would actually come up with the right one-time thing for it.
Right token?
Yeah.
I think somebody said there were some different apps.
There were some, but I don't know if they actually followed the same scheme. But it's something I want to look into, and might be a cool thing to have.
Neat. Okay, so interesting. We may have to, of course, finding free time. Maybe we could find some time to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Libre Ssl, we haven't mentioned that too much recently, but it looks like a new version has landed. So it looks like this signals the end of the 5.8 development cycle, of course, in OpenBSD, and it includes many fixes, including some stuff discovered at the hackathon. Yep. So let's see here.
That's why it's
developers
important they do those reviews that they're doing at the hackathons, right?
Just got to get eyeballs on the code. They said they uncovered dozens of problems in the OpenSSL code base with the covert code scanner, and this release incorporates all the fixes for those. So things such as dead code, memory leaks, logic errors, which, by the way, are bad in crypto, obviously, and much more.
Well, yeah, when you're reading the code and it looks and it kind of reads like it's doing something, but then because of the subtle logic error that you might not notice and that the scanner does notice, it's like, oh, except for that condition is never true. So it's not doing that bit sometimes.
That's just there for decoration. It doesn't really do anything. But things that made the chopping block this time around, it looks like SSL v3 support was removed from the OpenSSL command, and there's only a few other SSL v3 bits left. So,
and mostly just because applications aren't quite done using them yet and causes errors. I think on my Poudriere run recently, a newish version of Apache doesn't compile without SSL v3 for some reason.
Okay. Are you building with Libre Ssl?
No, OpenSSL from ports, but with SSL 3 disabled. And so then it's weird that it compiles fine on FreeBSD 9 and 10, but not 11.
Interesting.
Weird.
Something get removed or worked around or whatever.
It fell back to using base SSL maybe for it, and then I don't know. Weird.
Okay. Well, once it sounds like once some workarounds are found for the ports that still depend on those SSL v3 bits, they'll go ahead and remove that support as well. So, yay, make that happen. Various other improvements have been made. So the DH parameters are now 2048 bits by default, and some more old kludges and workarounds have been removed. CMake support added. That's pretty cool. And it looks like it'll be out in 5.8, which is due out a little earlier than usual, and it's in the FreeBSD ports tree. So go ahead and get your systems updated and get some new Libre SSL goodness.
Yes, including removing support for Internet Explorer 6 workarounds, which is good.
Okay, it's time for feedback and questions, but of course, before we head into that, really quickly, we want to mention another sponsor this week, which is going to be Tarsnap. And of course, the URL for that, tarsnap.com/BSD Now, where you can go get an account created right now, download a client for just about anything under the sun. I mean, heck, even Windows with Cygwin if you want to really get a little crazy there, but it can be done. And then you can be instantly backing up your data securely, remotely, fully encrypted before it leaves your box. Yep. And hey, don't take our word for it. Go look at the source code yourself and prove it to yourself. And that's probably a good thing to get in the habit of doing anyway, since of course we're big advocates of open source here anyway.
Yeah, and if you're going
to trust your
if you're going to trust it, you have to be able to verify that it's actually doing what it says it's doing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So nobody put a backdoor hack in there. Or there's no shenanigans happening. So Tarsnap makes that easy. You can audit it yourself, check it out, and even compile it from the source if you need to. So you can be sure that what you're running is exactly what you're supposed to be running. But again, tarsnap.com/BSD Now. Go there, and if you talk to somebody, let them know that we sent you. We'd appreciate it.
We'd love to hear some success stories of people using it as well. And if you're anything like me, I've put in $20 to get started, and at this point, that will last me forever because I've managed to use about $1.04 so far.
See, yeah, that price. There's no reason not to, guys. Come on. Okay, well, this week we have a couple questions that are follow-up from monitoring we talked to about last week. So first up is James. He says, first of all, congrats on episode 100. Been an avid viewer and listener since episode 1. Might be time to look at fixing the episode counter as episode 1000 will sneak up on you. Oh, wow. God, that's going to be pretty epic if we get to episode 1000. Dang. But he says, just a quick suggestion to a listener's question regarding network monitoring in episode 101. I've been running Zabbix, which is a fully open source and available in ports and packages for about a year now on FreeBSD with great success. I monitor across 2 sites around 200 switches, an active firewall cluster, and 50-odd Windows servers, 60-odd printers, and a bunch of other devices and servers, including a geographic diverse WAN infrastructure, utilizing wireless and fiber connectivity between 2 large academic institutes. He said some of the pros of it are that it can scale. You can spit out the GUI front end from the core server, as well as deploying proxy servers to distribute your load locally and or geographically. It also has low-level discovery of resources, agents for Windows, Linux, and FreeBSD, and talks SNMP, IPMI, amongst others. One of the very nice things, a very nice feature is the JSON API, which should let you extend its application. Where it beats Nagios is for ease of use, historical graphing, and excellent alerting and notification system with real logic. I highly recommend anyone looking to build an NMS try Zabbix, as well as any existing Nagios shops try that. One downside right now is the lack of encryption on the wire between components, core, server, proxies, and agents, but this is coming for version 3.0. One last note, Zabbix is trusted and used by ICANN to monitor the Internet's domain name system, as well as Red Hat, who migrated from Nagios for their PaaS offering, Openssh. So and he has some links to information about Zabbix, a talk here, and then Openssh as well. So very cool. Well, thank you for the tip there. I appreciate that. I may have to try that. Try deploying that since it looks like there's already packages available.
I've looked at it before. At the time, disk space was a lot harder to come by than it is now. And so I liked, for Nagios, I use Nagios Graph, which keeps the little RRD files. So I have history on my monitoring go back like a year, but when you look at your old data, it's averaged out over like one sample a week or something. Whereas with Zabbix, you get the full detail the whole time, but it takes that much more space. But now space isn't so much of a problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, space is almost irrelevant at some point for most of these things these days.
And then
okay, so you want to grab the second one here?
Stuart wrote in about the monitoring, and he pointed out a new monitoring system called Bergamot monitoring, which I was informed by my business partner that that's the fragrance they use in Earl Grey tea, and that's where the name comes from. And he says it's Nagios compatible, so it speaks the same format for the plugins. So if you already have, if you built custom plugins like we have at Scale Engine to, we have one that checks making sure the replication for like the PCBSD CDN, our Nagios actually alerts now if one of the edges gets more than a couple hours behind, so that we don't end up with the problem we used to have where, one would get way behind and then give people stale packages.
You got to pull 12,000 packages, and all of a sudden it's like, I'll get 500 here and then some here. Oh, wait, they're not in sync anymore.
So
that's been fixed.
A monitoring system that can use all the Nagios infrastructure you've already built, but is better, is definitely interesting. You've noticed it's GPL v3 rather than BSD license, but if you're just using it, that doesn't make that big of a difference usually.
Sure.
So thanks for the tip.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show, folks. But you wait and see. Of course, the interview we have next week was pretty epic. You won't want to miss that. So a little tease for next week's episode. But as we close here, we do want to remind you, send all your feedback over to feedback@bsdnow.tv. See how easy we made that for you. Send everything there. So show ideas, topics, or stories, or something you want mentioned on the show, something you think we need to be aware of that maybe we didn't mention or have missed.
Interview recommendations, or if you'd like to do an interview.
Yes, for sure. So send all that in. And I think, Alan, you have something to show here about our T-shirts being available.
Yes. So the BSD Now T-shirts are now available. You can go to bsdnow.tv/shirt and or click the shirt link at the top of our website, and you can place your order for your BSD Now T-shirt.
Yes, you got to get them now before they're gone. I guess you have till the end of August.
You have until August 31st to place your order, and then they will ship out shortly after that.
And for those who didn't know, it's a parody of the Usual Suspects movie poster. So if you don't remember, you can go Google that. We have some links in the show notes as well if you're curious where the idea came from. But I think it looks awesome. So you need to get more than one. Get a couple. So you have
it's available in
significant others or
men's
friends.
and women's fit as well.
So next week's episode, just to give you a heads up, will be a pre-recorded one since Alan's going to be heading out to BSD Cam, and I think I'm leaving next Wednesday as well for Texas Linux Fest. So if you're going to be at either of those next week, come on by and say hi. We'd love to see you.